Welcome. You've landed in bonus module 1. We're going to be keeping it real about intuition. This is Vasavi Kumar, and you're here for the source of your success to really tap into what is that source. And for me, I know I said to you that I was going to share with you one of the number one things that drive me every day in my life, in my business, how I communicate with myself, how I communicate with other people, the choices that I make, and that's intuition. So we're going to be keeping it real about intuition today. As you know, I'm all about keeping it real. So let's get right into it. So the first thing is really about when we talk about intuition, I can't help but to also throw in fear. Because here's the thing, your fear and your intuition can feel exactly the same. And what I mean by that is it can feel like the thing that you need to be doing, but fear shows up as worry, anxiety, I can't do it, and intuition is just, let's just say it's a quieter version of your fear. Your fear is that loud chatter telling you, don't do it, it's dangerous, it's scary, you're gonna fail. Your intuition, if we lowered the volume of your fear, what's really left is your intuition, which is, you can do it. I know it's scary, but you can do it. It's that soothing kind of motherly voice, or it's just that soothing, loving voice, consoling you and having compassion for you and saying, I understand that you may be scared. However, I believe in you. I trust you, right? So fear is totally based in anxiety and worry and failure, and it's totally ego based. Intuition is all about trust and surrendering to your source, to your spirit. However, it's really important to know where each of them exists. So your fear exists in your mind. That's why I call it the chatter. The chatter is like the mind going 100 miles an hour. It's like blah, blah, blah. Every time you're about to embark in something new, that's your fear. Your intuition exists in your soul and in your heart. And oftentimes we forget to tap into that. So that's why it's perfect that today I'm going to be talking to you about tapping into your intuition. What does that look like? So just a little bit about the difference, right? There's a big difference between fear and intuition. So the difference is when you make a decision based on fear, you're going to be scared and you're going to feel like there's not going to be any sort of expansion in your heart. But when you make a decision based on intuition, there really is no fear. So I just want you to practice that, right? Like practice, get scared because it's going to happen. Fear is very normal. It's very natural. But just notice what happens when you make a decision from fear. So for example, I used to really hate saying no to people. I'd be afraid to say no because I was afraid that they wouldn't love me. But I would say yes, even though I wanted to say no. And in the moment, I felt like, okay, at least I don't have to deal with, them not loving me. But I was still scared. I was still very worrisome and anxious, and it just didn't feel good. So that's why it's so important to pay attention to how you feel when it comes to making certain decisions and choices in your life, in your relationships, anything that you're about to embark on, or maybe you need to know if you need to walk away from something. It's so important to pay attention to how you feel. So when you pay attention to how you feel, you really get to sit with and be with whatever's going on inside of you. So pay attention to how you feel when you're operating in fear. And your fear, just ask yourself, what is that? And just feel, what does that even feel like? Fear usually feels like heart racing, you can't be right. You just feel like, hopeless, despair. There's a whole bunch of negativity that you just don't feel good. And then we're going to talk about more how to tap into your intuition more and have that be a practice in your daily life. So fear is an indicator. I want you to, next time you meet someone, pay attention to the first 8 seconds. And you can usually, if you're tuned in those 8 seconds, you can feel, how do you feel when you're around that person? It's why we get into bad relationships. And I don't mean bad as a moral thing, but it's why we get into relationships that don't serve us, why we get into friendships and business partnerships and just associate ourselves with people that don't actually make us feel good, because you haven't totally listened and turned inwards. So this is really about that listening inwards versus outwards what's going on. There's a lot of distractions out there. So it's really important that we listen inward. So pay attention to those first 8 seconds. And I'm going to extend it, not just when you meet someone, but when you're given an opportunity, when someone asks you to do a favor, when you have an idea that you want to act on, just pay attention to the first 8 seconds about what's going on and just pay attention to how you're feeling. You know, anytime fear pops up, it's because you're about to do something outside of your quote unquote normal realm of possibility. And if you listen and you feel closely and sit with your fear, you're actually going to start to become excited about what's possible. So here's the thing, what happens to our fear, when you have an idea, when you have something new and possible, the first thing that usually happens is we get scared. Oh, how am I going to do it? So if you listen and you spend those first 8 seconds and actually allow the fear to pass through you, sit with your fear, be with your fear, respect your fear, and just ask yourself, what are you trying to tell me? What is it that I need to know from you? We get so scared of our fear. We think it's like a bad thing. It's really not. When you turn your fear inwards, that's your intuition. But we have all the other chatter on top of it. So we've labeled it as fear and we've labeled it as bad and wrong. So your intuition. Let's talk about your intuition. When you get excited or you're just happy about a new possibility in your life, whether it's to be a part of a new relationship, whether it's to allow yourself to trust in yourself, trust in others, when it's a new idea that you're going to turn into reality, all of this, the getting excited, the being happy, all of this is a result of you just listening to you. Because here's the thing, if you actually just listened to you, and started trusting you and surrendering to your source, to your spirit, your God, universe, whatever. There's no actual religious framework to this. This is really just your higher self. What you'd find is, oh my God, I have everything I need right now to make this happen. I am so excited about the possibility. So this is really about trusting your gut versus your brain. Your gut's just another word for your intuition, your sixth sense. So this is about trusting your gut versus your brain, versus that chatter. This is about learning to listen to yourself for the clues of your greatness. So one of the things that I want to ask yourself when you're presented with something new, instead of asking yourself, how am I going to do this? Because that's where we get caught up. We get stuck in the how am I going to make it happen? I want you to ask yourself, what do I already have that's going to make this possibility into a reality? So this is about asking yourself and tapping into yourself and really getting that bird's eye view of what you already have inside of you. Okay, and so there are obviously tools that you may need. You may need some resources, may need to read a book, but the fact of the matter is you have what you need inside, and what you have inside is that drive, is that commitment, and is that trust. This is about trusting your intuition, okay, really tuning inwards, turning the dial down into all that chatter so you can listen to that voice inside of you. So what I want you to do, I want you to draw a circle and put a dot inside of it, and that's you, okay? And this circle here is your comfort zone, okay? Oh, no, I'm sorry. This circle here is you, and then I'm going to have you draw another circle outside of that. That's your comfort zone. I know that the word comfort zone is kind of blocked, but that's your comfort zone. And this is where everything is normal. Everything is automatic, from how you make your coffee to the kind of relationship you may have with your colleague, to the way you and your partner or your spouse communicate, to, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. These are all things where it's comfortable, it's normal, it's automatic, it's habitual. You've had great practice living in this area. Now I want you to draw another circle outside of that. This is where possibility lives. This is where anything new, anything different, it makes you excited and scared at the same time. FYI, there's a place in your brain where both excitement and fear and that scary feeling exists. So it's not weird that you get excited and scared at the same time. It's really not. It's total excitement because you're like, oh my God, there's so much that's possible. But then you also get scared because you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So I'm drawing this because I want to ask you, where are you? Are you living right outside in that first circle, that comfort zone? Are you kind of right on the edge? Or are you already living where possibility lives? It's not a place to judge. It's not a place to blame or make yourself wrong. It's really just so you know this is where I'm at right now. You really just want to get clear. This is just all about the truth, right? This is about you keeping it real with yourself and asking yourself, where am I at right now? It's like if you want to lose weight, you got to look at where you're at now. Okay, I'm at 175 pounds. Great. What do I want to get to? Okay, I want to get to 140 pounds, right? You got to know where you're beginning. So the minute you choose to step out of your comfort zone, that's where self-doubt rears its ugly head. It is so normal. Like I want to actually normalize this conversation that when you're about to step outside of your comfort zone, or even when you're outside of your comfort zone, self-doubt will rear its head. And you want to know something? It's going to rear it even more. The work isn't done when you step outside of your comfort zone. In fact, the self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the can I do this, that's going to show up even more. And that's why it's so important for us to be talking about intuition, because that is going to happen. There are times when, when I launched this program, I was like, am I doing the right thing? Are people going to like this? Do I know what I'm doing? Of course, all that stuff comes up. And then that's when I had to turn inwards and ask myself that question. Vasavi, do you know what you're talking about here? Do you have a message? Do you have a gift? And I had to be obedient. There's that word. I don't like that word obedient, except when it comes to my source, when it comes to my intuition and to my universe and to God. I had to be obedient and just listen to that answer when I asked myself, do I have what it takes? So get ready, because when you're floating outside of your comfort zone, when you are living and breathing and operating outside of your comfort zone, fear is going to show up. Anxiety, well, not even anxiety, but self-doubt is going to show up. So welcome it. It means that you're playing a big game. So let's just talk about this here, okay? What I have found is truly beneficial. The reason why I created the Source program is because I know when I first started out on my spiritual journey, on my personal development journey, I didn't have anyone. I maybe had a therapist that I talked to once a week, and maybe my parents back in the day. I didn't have a community that was committed to living outside of their comfort zone, was committed to living in their greatness, and was committed to being their best self and allowing themselves to be human, right? So I think we often think spirituality, we think we have to be perfect, we're all evolved, nothing bothers us. No. It's really about allowing yourself to be human, being in a space of people who are willing to love you unconditionally and willing to support you no matter what. So let's talk about your community. That's why I created Source. So, that's why we have the private community group that you're going to have access to. And it's important that if you feel a certain feeling or a certain emotion, instead of keeping it in, talk about it with someone. It's okay to just talk about it. I call it conscious complaining. I'm not a big advocate of complaining just for the sake of it, but if you need to vent and if you need to get stuff out of you, consciously complain. Call up someone in your community, post something and say, listen, I just need to vent for 3 minutes. Get that feedback. The point is to just get it out of your system. And when we're talking about taking that next step into your life, whether it's you want to reinvent yourself, whether it's you want to start something new, whether it's you're about to enter into a new relationship, I love to say to breathe life into it. Don't just keep it a dream. Don't just keep it a thought in your head. Talk about it. Say, hey, this is what I'm up to. I want to start this business, or I'm about to start this blog or write this book, or I'm ready to reinvent my relationship with my husband, with my wife, with my kids, with myself, right? So I talk about breathing life into it because you want to make it real. Think about it. If it's just in your head, it's just a thought. Right? So you want to breathe life into it, make it real, get rid of the scariness. The more you talk about it, the more normal it feels. It feels like, okay, I got this. I can do this. And this is just about normalizing your big, juicy dream. And that's why it's so important that you're in a community of people that support you, that honor you, that respect you, because you want to be around people that are going to say, yeah, you know what? You can do it. You can do it. I have faith in you. So let's talk about taking action, because I'm all about taking action. As you can see, these slides aren't, this entire presentation, the slides, the audio isn't too long, because I really believe in short kind of sound bites, like filled with content, and then you go take your action. So this week, This week, I want you to practice listening to your intuition everywhere, from what you want to eat to, whether or not you want to do something on a Friday night, to saying yes or no to someone or to yourself. I want you to notice this week any opportunities that scare you. Just notice the fear. It's all about this week is just noticing the fear. Notice it, notice it, notice it. If you don't notice it, it's going to own you. It's going to control you. So notice it. And I want you to make a list. If you look on your worksheet that you've downloaded, you can make a list. I want you to make a list of all the what ifs and the what if I don'ts. So why this is really important, because in talking about tapping into your intuition, our mind usually has us answering immediately. But this is about slowing down your process, slowing down the conversation that you're having with yourself. And I want you to give yourself 24 to 48 hours to think about it. It can be anything, right? Any decision that you want to make, anything that you want to engage in. If you want to go see a movie, let's just start small here, but it can be to the smallest to the biggest types of things going on in your life. It's about getting clear and then acting and practice using your intuition. So in this list, when you notice this week of any opportunities that scare you, just make a list of what if I do and what if I don't. The point of doing this is to just slow down the thinking process and get into the heart-centered, the soul-centered process. That will never guide you wrong. I recently had Sonia Choquette, who is well known in the personal development industry, but she's specifically known for her Sixth Sense books and, really talking about tapping into intuition. And she was a guest on my radio show called Deep Talk. And I remember she did this exercise with me, and she said, anytime you have a question that you want to ask yourself, and it could be a deep question, it could be a very deep, thought-provoking question, and it can be something as simple as, should I eat spaghetti tonight? And there was an exercise that she did that I wanted to share with you. And she basically said, you ask yourself the question that you want the answer to. Now, don't do this when you're driving. You want to do this when you're sitting in a quiet place, but you ask yourself the question that you want the answer to. You get quiet, you listen for the answer. And remember what we said, that you got to pay attention to how you feel, right? Like if I were to ask myself, do I want to eat spaghetti? My mind will tell me, don't, it's so many carbs. And then there's a part of me that's like, oh, but you know what? That would feel really good if I just had a little bit, maybe I have some salad on the side. This is really just about listening to yourself, right? And then once you ask yourself that question, you then ask yourself, is this true? And the reason why you ask yourself, is this true, is so you train yourself to ask once and listen twice. And in this case, you're asking twice and you're listening twice. But this is really just about getting even deeper, like asking yourself that question, listening, and then asking it again, is this really true for me? So we've come to the end of our intuition module. I want to say thank you. Thank you again for being a part of this program. And I'm going to encourage you to, if you have any questions, post them in the private member group. And make sure, you get your worksheet so you have all the action steps, so everything's downloadable. And I'm here if you need anything at all. So thank you so much.